So, welcome back, and we are with the St. Michael again, and I think this is the last video I'm going to make on it. Which you think, oh, that's a good sign, and it is, because, like, I don't know. I was going to say something about the psychology of that sentence, but I couldn't think of what to say. But, yeah, here's our donor clock, which has been partially reassembled, although it has been, it's donated a few parts. I mean, and a clock that's not a donor should not do this. Although that is quite a cool effect if you want to make a film with a clock that does that. I don't know. I always reassemble these. I think this is probably one of the first donor clocks I have. I very rarely dedicate a clock purely for parts donation. I never used to do that. Well, I don't think I never used to do that, but it's something that I very rarely do. I never really buy a clock with the intention of just using it for parts, because I mean, something like this, it's in great condition. It's a 1973 Smith's Timecal. I don't know what is Timecal-y about this, because the original Timecal was, it was a model. It's a distinct model, whereas this one actually has the same case design as whatever this is. Maybe this was called Timecal. Maybe this was the Timecal of its time, but they took the name off and then put it back. Although that doesn't make sense at all, because I have a Timecal from 1959, and I have had Timecals from all periods, which all had their model name on the dial, Timecal. So yeah, they must have sort of used it as a brand rather than actual model name. I think it said something like that on a website. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, that's enough about that. But yeah, parts clocks. I don't usually do that. However, this one, I think it's about time, because I've got lots of clocks, from very poor to very good condition, and I think the very poor ones, for example, this, I think this is the ideal parts clock, because look at it. It has no condition merit whatsoever. It doesn't have any glass, which is the main reason. But yeah, the movement's alright. It needs a bit of work, and I'll show you. Not using my Westlox bezel remover for a particular reason, although there's no glass in here, it wouldn't do any harm. But it's a bit far gone for any protection anyway. Sorry about the off-topic bit, but look. Needs a clean up, but it's complete, and I think it could work if it needs to, although it doesn't have a mainspring in it. Thing is, with these particular movements, they changed the alarm to not have the normal spring shape, but they changed it to a coiled spring, which makes the knob much harder to remove, because you can't take the tension out of it. Because with the eye-shaped one, you can rotate the spring itself around, and then it wouldn't be contacting the same way, and therefore it wouldn't be gripping as much. But with this one, you can't really do that, so it makes removing that alarm knob a lot harder. So it's a lot harder to take the clock apart. You could take the brass cam off the front, the cheese wheel as it's called, but it's equally difficult to do. It depends on the basically it's like a lottery. It depends how tightly stuff's pressed on your particular clock. But I've gone a bit off topic, so I'll go back to it. Yeah, this is a rare example for me. Anyway, I'm going to do it more often. Of a clock which I got purely for parts. I have not really, I'll tell you why, I think I explained it before, but I have a shortage of lenses. This is a lens on it, and the case itself is in very poor condition. Only the base though, I think they might have used a different kind of metal. I don't know, it's really rusted on there, but the rust has not really affected the top part at all, maybe a little bit. Unless it's just been sitting that in moisture and the top hasn't contacted it. But yeah, this is a 1964 Smith's clock of some kind. I don't have my... Oh no, I do. I do have a mint condition version of this model. This is over here, I didn't show it last time. But it's an identical model. Absolutely mint condition, same year, 1964. This should have a code on it. I've started to write in pencil the code on the movement. So, because I'm going to do a bit of research on these. Smith's alarms, and I want to I'm trying to work out what these codes mean, and I'll get to that in a future video. But I think the letter is the variation of the movement design, even though there's been a bit of a confusion with the H one, because there seems to be different types of variation within the same letter. 5 is the month, and the 4 is the last digit of the year. 1964 makes sense for there are 4 to be there, as well as, well, this one doesn't. This is the old codes, but this one from 1973 has J34, which might mean either the movement is a year later than the case, which is usually the other way around, or they changed the code again to have the year the first digit. Very confusing mess, but since I already have a great version of this clock, having a bad condition one, the main reason is the dial. See around there, the alarm hand's been put on too tight and it scraped the paint off. But yeah, I'm not talking about the St. Michael much, am I? Let's get to that. So yeah, sorry to jump the gun a bit, but I've already serviced it. Well, I did that on camera, but I've already reassembled it. And my finger was on the balance wheel for a bit. It's running very well. It had run from last night to today, so about 20 hours, non-stop, perfectly well, been oiled. I did use some parts from the donor, and you might think, well, why not just use the whole movement from the donor? Well, here's the thing, because I'm doing some research on these, I like to keep what's in this movement as original as possible. So I did not swap any parts that were different from one to the other. For example, I didn't swap over the great wheels because they're made of a different material. Same with the centre wheel. But these three and the escape wheel and pallet were the same exact design, apart from the letter S, which I'll just make a note of, mental note, as the donor movement and the original. I have them here, and I thought, well, these are very hard to clean to get this corrosion off. I don't really have the right stuff for it. Same with the balance wheel, actually. Although this is a good hairspring, I might use that on something else. And if they're the same part, these are pieces which, you know, being corrosive will be detrimental to the actual running of the clock. And they're the same. I'm going to swap those out. Something I also swapped out was this pillar here. I don't really usually take pillars out and stuff, but as you can see, I crushed the riveted head of the other one. Where is the old? Yeah, this is it, because it's got that notched out thing that I foiled off to get the knob off, the nut off originally. Not very smart. And I have in this tin of Smith's parts, it's off camera. I took some. Oh, this is the wrong type, but I took some pillars off in a scrap movement. This is the later design where they did not have nuts on the back of the clock. Focus on that. Yeah. As you can see, there's no thread on the top of that because, and these later ones, like this, and the stoner movement, there's no thread because they did not put nuts on the back anymore. They used to have nuts on the back of the clock to hold the movement in the case, but at some point they decided the bezel was enough to hold it all together, so they just lost that. And the older ones have this longer thread. Let's find a better example of one. Right, here we go. You can see how much thread was lost with me filing off the threads to get the nut off it, because it was very, very rusted on. A little bit lost, but it looked bad from the outside, so I decided to swap it. Well, that was a loud noise. But yeah, this is what's left of the donor movement. Not much left in that at all. But the plates are good. And I'll have to find a movement with the same design if I want to proceed. Same date code as well, actually. That's pretty difficult, but I mean, just from that, I have a clock with the same date code. It is this Gay Dawn H54, as I've written on the bottom in pencil, which I do now. Save myself from opening it up, as I said earlier. H54 on there, and I opened that one up because that also had a broken spring click. So this one actually has no spring clicks in it because the spring click for the time and the alarm are the same. I harvested both of them out of here, so yeah, this is literally just a scrap piece of clock. But I've reassembled it just to, you know, look better on a shelf and keep everything tidy. Oops, I did not mean to scratch that. Oh, that's not too bad at all, did no damage. Where's the camera focusing? Yeah, I did no damage on there. You See the printing up close on there, and the luminous dots. Best to keep a lens on there, but I'm using this lens. Clean the lens up as well. So yeah, I replaced the spring click on here. If you want to see a video on how to replace the spring clicks on these great wheels, then let me know in the comments and I shall make a video for you, because I didn't show that on camera and I probably should have done, because it's quite an interesting procedure, replacing the spring click in there. I think it's the same for Westclock's 66s as well, because in the 60s, 50s and maybe 40s as well, they used that spring click design. So H5912 is the date code on here. This is the older type. H is the movement code, I presume, like variation of the design. 59 the year, 12, so this is almost 1960s, but it's not. It's 1959. Late mid-century, I suppose, isn't it? Mid to late mid-century. I think mid-century modern, I should say, rather than mid-century, because if you think about it, 1950 is the middle of the century, and 1950 style is not that modern at all, compared to 1957 or whatever. But I did not finish the reassembly of this, because I thought, well, I get it to a point where I know it's going to keep time, and it's been running well, so avoid the trial and error of trying out different parts in this. So now I can satisfy you with a rewarding end to this series. So I'm just taking these nuts off again, because I did not fully reassemble this. I may as well do that now and show you how to finish this thing off. But if you want to see on how to reassemble one of these movements, I have actually done a series on these movements called New Dawn Reassembly, probably New Dawn Movement Reassembly, because the model of that alarm clock I was doing is a New Dawn, but it's got the same movement exactly, or thereabouts, 1950-54 I think. So there were washers under here, so I'll put those on. There's a washer there, and I'm trying to separate the plates because there's no nuts holding this thing together right now, so avoid any pressure pulling the plates apart. The washer's on there. I'm going to use these nuts on the outside because they're nice and shiny. I'll use these slightly rustier ones on the inside, where it doesn't really show as much. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with this pillar I replaced. I do not have a rivet gun with me right now. It would help if you did, but I just peened over the end of that shaft again, like they did originally, and yeah, I mean, it worked pretty well, because I didn't grind off the rivets off the old movements. I ripped them out. Well, it's a hard way of saying it. I don't really rip them out like to bend anything else. I do it a bit carefully, but essentially it is ripping them out, because you're just bending material away as you do it, rather than actually cutting into anything, and that allows you to peen the metal over, because there's still some left on the some meat left on the bone. I'll tighten these up now. And if the clock stops after you tighten them up, it might be because the balance wheel has been tightened up onto. And as you can see, this pillar is rotating when I tighten the nut up. But that is because my rivets aren't that... I didn't really do a massively amazing job. It's enough to hold the movement on for sure. I can pull on this all day and it will not come off. Like, literally. But it's not quite enough to grip it. But that's okay. We've got 3 out of 4 secure nuts, and it's not, and the forces are going to be pulling away rather than rotating it, so it's not really going to matter too much. So now we've got the bell. I'll not put the bell on yet. I'll put the bell on. Quickly put a couple of nuts on. Now I'm going to do the alarm. I'll put the bell on afterwards, because testing the alarm will just cause a racket. So let's tighten this one up a little bit. Finger tight. Get this one a little bit. And now comes the installation of the alarm. Not the alarm train, because that's already in there, the hammer and stuff, but the alarm setting and tripping mechanism. So you can see that hole up there. You may as well, if you want to know how to do this, you may as well watch my other series on this, but I'm just going to go through it anyway. This is the minute wheel. That goes on that little pin there. And it should not be too tight, but it should not be so loose that it falls off. There's usually, enough play to move it around. This is a low speed, higher friction part. And saying higher friction does not mean the friction is required, but it's just saying it's really, much higher tolerance than these parts over here when it comes to friction. So it doesn't matter if it's a little bit jammed or sticky. So here we go. This is the hour wheel with the hour pipe on it, on which the hour hand goes. And this is the alarm trip shaft and alarm cam, or alarm setting tripping cam. And this is quite sticky, isn't it? I'm thinking about might borrow the donor off this one. I might borrow the donor. Is it the same design? Let's have a look. I think it's still in here actually. Where's that donor clock at? It's still in here. There's no circlip in here either. I think it got lost at some point. But yeah, this looks much nicer. Is it the same design though? Because I don't want to go this far with keeping it all the same and then suddenly I do not. So I'll see if it's the same design. First I've got to take it out of here, which is not easy, especially with just fingers, which is not usually what I do. So let's give it a bit of a push and a pull. Yeah, these particular shafts do become rusty and become thicker, and therefore they're harder to get through the actual material. Pull that, and now we're in. So I think the spring's not the same design. No, it's not. So I'll swap that back out again. But is this the same design? I'm hoping it is. Let's have a quick comparison. I think it is the same design. Oh no, the finger's a little bit longer on the older one. But in all honesty, I don't think it's going to matter too much. I think the hand's the same size. Yeah, I think everything else is the same. Can I swap that finger out? It's a bit much, isn't it? Going a bit far. But let's just see, because this is the scrap one now. Can I pull this out? Not worth trying, to be honest, I don't think. I push it out like that. Yeah, Smith's saying, don't bother, mate. Alright, well that'll be in the scrap parts. But the length of the alarm finger is not something I'm really going to be cataloguing. So yeah, that spins quite freely. You can put a bit of oil on there if you really wanted to. Penetrating fluid, but it's not really something you need to oil because it'll just run away and get in everything else. So let's put our old spring on there. Bend this down for a bit more flexing action. I think it might have got a bit compressed over time. And that fits over there with that little finger going through that rectangular hole, as I would say. And these little holes down here are where with the older designs, they didn't fully change the movement for some reason. These are artifacts of an older design, I think, where there was a different kind of spring where it went up and around like that. It's riveted to there. A much older design for an alarm spring. But it's interesting that they kept that as a little artifact. So let's put that in there. And there is a circlip. So if I get my pliers, fill this out of the way. There is it. There it is. And these are easy to lose, so don't lose them. And this is important for the alarm. So it goes under there, and it fits on the shaft on the lower, if you can look at it from top down, the lower notch. I know that fell off, but I'll just get to it in a second. Might need to get to it from the side. Okay, bit of a change of plan. I'm going to undo this one. I'm actually going to remove the button thinger. Like that. I'm going to remove this for now. Just pull them apart slightly. Ham it out a little bit. Right, where's that circlip at? Fit this on the bottom shaft. So bottom notch rather. So as you can see, it is, because I've got the movement upside down, it's now the top notch. But we can still fit it through the hole in the back. And I should think it will all come together well. This all does this. So I'll put this back on. And if the hour pipe's still attached to the face, then don't worry about it, because that can be worked around. It's probably easier to do that actually. But now that circlip's in there, there is a clip like this, which goes around that top hole. And if you put it on sideways like this first, slot it in, and then you can rotate it around. It's much easier than trying to squeeze it down whilst putting it on. It's not exactly pleasant. There we go. Not the most pleasant part of this because it's a bit scratchy and scuffy. But by rotating it around again, it'll ping back into the hole. Ooh. Ping back into the hole. There we go. And now that should be nice and secure. So I'm just going to pop this back open a tiny bit just to get this alarm button in. Goes under like that. And I think we should be pretty good to go. Alright, let's see. Put this little knob on here and wind up the alarm. We should have a bit of a function going on. The clock stopped for a second there. But it has been running overnight, so I trust it. Right, so if you put it around like that, so the pin's not in that little notch, and then wind it up, button should pop up like that, and you wind it. It should not ring. So wind it up all the way. And when the pin, when you rotate the knob, the pin, when it falls into the notch, the wheel will pop up like that because the spring is pulling it upwards, and that will remove that little, the spring that had the little finger on it. The finger will pop out of that rectangular hole, and behind it is the hammer, which wants to move but it can't. So when it happens, it will let the hammer move, and we should have a ringing action. Stop it with the button, that works very well. So, not much left to do. Where is the hand knob? I'll put that on just to see how well it turns, because if it turns too stiff, then we can't be able to adjust it. No, it's fine, it's perfect, okay. Yeah, I also removed the regulator and put a new one in. I also changed the, not regulator, balance cups, because I swapped those over as well. But, oh, what happened there? I pushed it and it stopped. That's because I haven't tightened it up properly, I don't think. Yeah, I need to readjust these things in a second. Yeah, that seems to be all hunky-dory. Yeah, so let's put the bell in, and that's the last part, I think. The older bells, you don't need to undo the nuts all the way, but these 1950s ones, 1960s ones, you do. Nuts all the way, rather. Those washers on the other side make it the same spacing, so it doesn't sit crooked in the case, because the bell mounting has a thickness to it. And I think by changing the bell mounting to have it riveted under the front plate, they managed to save all those washers, although I much prefer it with the removable bell, because the later ones, like the donor movement we got over there, you can't remove the bell, so you know, I just like the ability to take stuff apart fully. So I'm just going to undo this a tiny bit, like that. Should be, yeah, there's still barely any play in it, but it's just when you put it back in, you don't want it squeezing together or anything. So I've already oiled this, so I'm just going to put it back in the case now. This is our case. What's the code? H5912. Just jot that on there. What an awful two, but oh well. We will cope. So put that in there, like that. We have a movement in a case. Let's tighten it up with these shiny new nuts. Depends how many nuts you have. If you've got all four, that's great, but if not, then just go for these two. Or if you just have one, go for this one, because it's more balanced. Otherwise you might end up with a off-balanced, what's the name? You do not want that. I think I have, oh, I've got excess nuts, okay. I will put these on clocks which need them. And I'm not going to put one on there because that's going to just turn around, but it's good, just better looking to have a proper protrusion there rather than a just sawn off mess. So I'm just going to quickly put these extra nuts I have, which I found on the table and down the side of stuff, on the clocks which need them. For example, this New Dawn, which I serviced in a previous series, that needs a nut. Let's put a brown one on to match. I think I used all the rusty ones up except that one. It's a bit more secure in the case, isn't it? And this Gilbert could use one. Put a shiny one on here. Yeah, this Gilbert's going to be a very exciting series. It weighs a lot more than the other ones as well. Maybe it's because of the glass. Yeah, this is just quite heavy, this. What else needs nuts? We've got two spares. There we go. This New Dawn can have a couple of nuts on it. Haven't tightened them up properly, just so I have a place to put them. There we go. So, back on the subject of the St. Michael, which is this. We have our, this is still running, isn't it? Ooh, winders. Put those on now so I can adjust it. So we have the time winder on the right. This should go down all the way to the shaft. You have the alarm knob, setting the time you want the alarm to go off. Sounds good. We have the alarm winding key to wind up the alarm spring. Just go down all the way? Don't think so. They changed the alarm design a lot as well, so sometimes these pop down all the way already. Oh no, this one does, okay. And sometimes they don't. The older ones don't, the later ones do. The advantage of having them pop down already, like these later ones, is so you can actually decide to have the alarm turned off when it's not going off. So you think, actually I don't want to wake up at this time, turn the alarm off already, so it won't ring. But the earlier ones you have to wait till the alarm goes off so you can turn it off. So I think it's a good improvement they made. Early 50s they made that improvement, I think. So pop that on there. I think they started making this movement design in 1945 or something. I think it dates, I think it's a very revised version of a movement that dates back to the early 30s, I believe. So I'd love to get one of those, but I just can't seem to find many. They're probably quite unusual. So this alarm hand is a bit loose actually, because what I did is, because when I was testing it out, I just wanted to save a bit of time and make everything ready for the video. The alarm shaft, which had a bit of rust on it, the one that was sticky that came out of this clock originally, I think it was slightly thicker. So I widened the hole very, very slightly just to get it on there. But now I'm going to close it up a little bit again with these pliers. This hand has been messed around with a lot actually, it's very thin. It explains why it's all scratched up on the other clock, so let's not have let that happen on this one. You should just sit on the very end of the shaft like that, that's good. You don't want it pressed down too far. Okay, I think we got that. So this should turn around, and I don't think that hand is the original style that would have gone on this clock. I think the original ones would have been like this. This is a later clock actually, but it's, you know, post mid-century. It's 1970s, so they went back to the old style for a bit. Worked better. So if you turn the hand knob backwards until it makes the alarm hand move backwards as well, or the right way around rather, you can set the alarm, the actual time to that time. So we've got these hands. A tiny bit of luminous paint missing from this one. I think it already was, to be honest. Alright, let's push that on there. This is the later type luminous paint where it's green. I prefer the older type where it's white, but I think it's more radioactive, so there's a trade-off there. I think that's why a lot of the clocks that were sold were actually that green colour, same as the paint. For example, I don't know, this colour, this is not actually a luminous clock, but it's got green numbers on it. Because this green colour looks like another colour, because the paint has its own colour to it. So if you have a coloured case with different colour paint in the hands, which was always green, then it looks a bit jarring. So I think the actual green cases they put on some of these matches the colour of the luminous paint itself, which is not something you'd really think happened, but it was. So let's just test the alarm last, put it to 12 o'clock, the alarm, wind up the alarm, button should pop out the top. What's happened here? The winder has broken for some reason. That's never happened before. The winder's just slipping on the shaft. That is a completely new thing to me. Alright, let's try a different key. We can squeeze that maybe a little bit. Just a little bit. I'll squeeze that too much, so let's see. Might be able to put it on there. I've never had that. Right, yeah, it's going on. Okay. Last minute save. Yeah, I've never had that happen before. And of course, it's the threaded part of the thing's not even on the thread anymore. Okay, let's put a new key on it. I'll just pinch one off something else. Pinch one off this New Dawn. Oop. This the thread's gone from the actual shaft, which is very bad. To replace it then, take it all apart again. Yeah, okay. Well, the alarm button's quite stiff actually. I'm going to put a bit of oil on there. Actually, this oil's too thin. I'll put some 3-in-1 on it. Alright, let's mop it up. Don't think that would have gone in the mechanism, which is good. We do not want that to go in the mechanism. And I think we're getting there. It's just a bit stiff. The whole thing's very rusty. Okay, let's try this. No, the button still does not want to... Oh, it looks like it's got the old type thing where you can't... Yeah, you can't turn on the alarm when it's not the right time. So you're trying to turn it on, but the button overrides the winder. So you can actually adjust that and turn that off, which I might do another time, but at the moment it's just going to be like this. So when the alarm is on, you turn on the alarm. And then you, yeah, not very a nice thing to happen, but I'll adjust that another time. So at 12 o'clock we should have alarm. Hands weren't quite aligned, were they? Right, there we go. And put the lens on. Fits inside those, it would have been glass in this one originally, but I don't have a spare. And where is our bezel? Brass bezel. And I think this concludes the series on this 1959 St. Michael alarm clock made by Smith's English Clocks Limited. There we go. This is running very well, and I will keep you updated. And this is covered in oil from that spray of oil I did. So let's. Don't know what happened there. It went everywhere. The price to pay for lubrication, eh? Right, I'll leave it at that. I think it's from my fingers, actually. Yeah, it's from my fingers. Okay, I'm going to leave you with this. I won't do any more on-camera work on this, unless you really desperately want me to do something in particular, then let me know what that is. So yeah, thank you very much for watching. And please do explore my channel for more videos, because they're all like this, to be honest. They're all tinkering with something or other. And well, that is the 2 original series I was going to do. I'll do next videos will be the Metamech, probably, because that's a long overdue request. I think I have the movement around here somewhere. But yeah, Metamech, and also I think I might do the what else will I do? Do the Temco at some point, probably not for a while. Probably won't do the mantle clock movement for a while. I'll have a look around. I might do the Gilbert. Oh, I've just done the Smith thing, haven't I? Chinese maybe. I might do the Chinese one. Yeah, I might do the Chinese one, or the Westclox Jock or something like that. Just to let me know what you'd like. Also, this Baby Ben does not have a date code. It has a nickel-plated movement, which is brand new to me for a Scottish-made thing. I think it's maybe American movement in there. But yeah, it's nickel-plated, but it has no date code of any kind. So I think the Westclox in capitals means it's 1952 or earlier, which is pretty early. But yeah, I couldn't find any.